Let me take a look at training mode with Zyva here, because she seems pretty interesting, and I want to find out exactly how some of this stuff is working. Oh! I can teleport before that thing even lands. Hello, my dear. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just going through my options here, trying to figure out what the, like, what a good string is, right? And it might be that. There we go. And it's like, if you have multiple of the kunais set up, you get multiple teleports. Like, this gets very, very complex extremely quickly. Jeez. Yeah, who says a game without jumps can't be technical? I had said this, I was talking to someone just the other day, and they were like, oh man, like, I feel like you're losing so much in a game like Fantasy Strike or in a game like Tough Love Arena because you don't have the ability to crouch. And they're just like, oh, well, that means you can't down back and like keep your position and this, that, and the other. And it's like, yeah, but there are all these other reasons why the games become super interesting and can get super technical, right? It's just that they're using that pulling away and limiting certain features in order to emphasize other features. And immediately with this, where you're like, okay, the right-left mix-up game, and the things you have to be able to do with your moveset to get the same kind of like interactivity of a normal fighting game is really cool, right? Like, and you get these interesting things like this teleport mechanic off of, right? Okay, switch side, go for high. As Ducky says, you have to commit to your position if you can't down back, and that's exactly it, right? And it's a frustrating thing because positioning is so important. That's why traditional fighting game players particularly like the ability to down back, because they're like, no, I know I'm exactly here. Oh, I'm up for 4 frames when I'm down and back exactly here. I can keep that exact space. And you get to keep your defensive option without having to constantly be positioning and repositioning like in Fantasy Strike because you can't down back. All my movement options are now vulnerable. So I can't block if I want to keep my position. Therefore, I'm always at risk. And if I want to be defensive, then I'm giving up all my positioning, which is a super big risk. Yeah, whenever commentary says they're just doing nothing, 10 out of 10 times, that's not actually true because they're at the very least down backing, right? It's like, yeah, they're very intentionally doing something, in fact. Not being able to down back can teach you absolutely so much, that Punk Monk. That is absolutely correct. Fighting game players will do themselves a disservice if they don't at least have the will to try out some of these games despite some limitations which may initially seem off-putting, right? Where they're like, no, I really want X, Y, and Z in my game. That's great, but don't give up on what's not exactly what you want in fear, right? Because then you might be giving up something great that you do like. You just don't know about it yet. Punk Monk, I think that's one of the big things about Fantasy Strike, which one of the things it does really well as like an introductory game to the fighting game scene and the fighting game community is that, yeah, it forces you and teaches you to play its game in certain ways, and that those skills do definitely cross over. The idea of, I've talked about a lot, the idea of instant blocking. So in Fantasy Strike, you want to be able to Yomi counter things, right? In order to tech a throw, you have to Yomi counter, which means that you do nothing. Literally no inputs will tech a throw. When you're on Wake Up, you want to wake up and do nothing in case somebody wants to meaty throw you, right? But you want to be blocking because there's probably going to be a strike coming in. Maybe they're jumping in at you, right? But what if the opponent jumps in and then empty jumps and then just lands and throws you? Well, if you're blocking because you want to block the jump in, right, you're going to get yourself hit by that throw. So what you want to do is, as Wake Up, you start waking up blocked, so you block a jump in, and then you go to neutral, and then you go back to block a few frames later, so just in case they empty jump, then you tech the throw. This is the concept known as fuzzy guarding, right? And you'll see this fuzzy guard concept in a lot of other games as well, where you have to layer your inputs to account for several different options, right? And that's super important in fighting games. And Fantasy Strike does it simply by being like, yo, you want to tech a throw? Do nothing. And that simple design choice has led a lot of players to be able to really grasp the idea of fuzzy blocking and therefore instant blocking. Because what you want to do is you want to block at the very last second. You want to leave that gap of doing nothing so you'll tech a throw and then block at the very last frame that a strike could connect. So you're teaching fuzzy guarding, you're teaching IBing, you're teaching positioning. There's all these things that Fantasy Strike has taught people, and they might not even realize that they've learned those things until they go to another game and they're like, oh, there's this explicit mechanic, and I'm like, oh, I have to do that all the time in FS, right? So like well-designed beginner games will be able to do that, and will be able to give people the in even if they don't realize it. But your directional inputs, Ducky, what are you gonna do? I know. It's the knee-jerk reaction to a lot of approachable fighting games, or fighting games that do design through limitation, is often that. People don't see the things that they associate with technical fighting games, and they prize a technical fighting game. Hey, I prize technical fighting games too, that's awesome. If they don't see that immediately, they think it's doing a disservice, and that somehow, and this is the weirdest thing about this whole conversation, that somehow, by having a game like Arcus Chroma or Tough Love Arena or Battle for the Grid, having those games exist apparently means that all other games aren't technical all of a sudden. Like, that there is no rule that should one of these games exist, then all other games must drop to that level. Yeah, and Monk, you're right. Battle for the Grid gets insanely technical despite its lack of traditional like special inputs. They're like, let's not focus on that. Let's focus on technical stuff in another way. And that's awesome. Why wouldn't we focus on that? Like, my God, this game is sick. Arcus Chroma, where you been all my life? Yeah, Punk, engage in the mind more as opposed to the hands. That's your motto, right? And yeah, there's a ton of games out there nowadays that are very much doing that, right? And there are other games that still cater to the hyper-technical stuff if you want it. Well, you know what's even best? All those old games that were super hyper-technical that a lot of people couldn't play, they all still exist too, right? If you all want to go play whatever KOF 90X and go dig into that, if you want to go play Spectral Generations, you can go play those games. They're available, most of them easily and readily available. So, get in there. Go enjoy them. I can't even believe what's going on here. Sorry, I'm just getting so distracted because this combo system is something else. I have no idea what Grainsun has put together, but this is wild.